And Brendan Hamme is, am I saying that right? Brendan?
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Tom. Pleasure to be with you.
Great to have you with us. Hamme, is the E pronounced? Is it Hamme?
Yeah, that's right.
Great. You are the staff attorney for the American Civil Liberties Union of Southern California, ACLU.SOCAL.org, as in ACLU SoCal, or Southern California. And I find this fascinating. Apparently there's a ballot measure, or is this a legislative measure about bullying?
Well, it's a measure that's being brought by the City Council of Carson.
Oh, okay. Great. So tell me about it.
It would be an ordinance.
So it'd be an ordinance. Tell me about it.
Well, so the ordinance will create criminal penalties for bullying conduct. Now, we at the ACLU certainly understand where the Carson City Council is coming from. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt in our minds that bullying is a pervasive problem that's deserving of our attention. It negatively impacts far too many of our most vulnerable populations of youth. But we believe that criminalization of bullying is not the right approach to addressing the issue.
So I think that to amplify somewhat on what you just said, we know that the most at-risk kids for suicide are gay, pre-adolescents and just adolescents, young gay people. Mm-hmm. And that one of the principal reasons why they're the most at risk for suicide is not just being conflicted over their sexuality, but because they're being bullied. And then there are, obviously other groups as well that are at high risk of suicide, which is tightly associated with being bullied. And then occasionally somebody snaps because they've been bullied, and now you've got, Eric Klebold. And so we don't want bullying to happen. And then we also know that people who bully in school tend to end up being, executives in companies that bully people or what. I mean, it just carries over into their lives. They become spouse abusers, everything else. So we really want to snap this or stop this stuff nip this in the bud, I guess is the cliche I was looking for. So what do we do about it?
Definitely.
So what do we do about it?
Well, so there are far better approaches to dealing with the bullying problems that we see than criminalization. So there are, school districts throughout California are using positive behavioral interventions and supports in which positive student behavior is rewarded and misbehaviors are addressed in a constructive way. They're also using programs like restorative justice, in which a student who has been bullied and the student who has done the bullying can be brought together in a way where they're really healing the wounds that exist between them and getting to the root causes of the problems. Criminalization is not going to do any of that.
In fact, is this not in some ways symptomatic of a larger kind of knee-jerk reaction in America that might be some small part of the answer to the question, why is it that America, with 1/3 the population of China, has almost twice as many people in prison, that our reaction to anything is to criminalize it?
Yeah, no, I think that you're absolutely right. And we see this with zero-tolerance policies. So zero-tolerance policies were put into place, really in response to the war on drugs and other tough-on-crime initiatives. But we've seen them employed increasingly to combat bullying of students. But what we find is that those responses, those punitive disciplinary measures, actually are employed far more frequently against the very students they're designed to protect. So against students of color, students with disabilities, and LGBT students. Right.
So what are you saying to the city council that's considering this? And by the way, is this something is this the first time this kind of thing has popped up? I'm guessing that this is symptomatic of things that have happened elsewhere.
Sure. So, I think that there are a couple of somewhat similar laws that were enacted elsewhere in the country. To my knowledge, this would be the first type of law that would be, if it were to be enacted, would be the first of its type within this state.
That is just so insanely broad, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so our concern is that the law is vague and overbroad. Mm-hmm. It defines harassment as conduct that would cause a person to feel terrorized, frightened, intimidated, threatened, harassed, or molested, and which serves no legitimate purpose. But it doesn't actually define what constitutes a legitimate purpose. It doesn't require that the conduct be offensive to a reasonable person, creating the opportunity for criminalization of minor behavior.
Well, wait a second. Doesn't law? I mean, isn't that one of the basic tenets of law that you can't that everything has to pass the reasonable person test? Or am I? I'm not a law school graduate. Am I missing something here?
No, I mean it's certainly a very key component of many of our laws.
Okay, but it's not necessarily written into those laws. It's simply that's part of how you adjudicate something, or is it typically written into a law?
Well, the reasonableness standard is typically written into the law.
Okay, all right.
But it also defines bullying as including cyberbullying, which, according to the City Council, includes sending hurtful, rude, and mean text messages. So it's easy to see kind of just how much everyday behavior could potentially be criminalized by a law like this.
Right. And the flip side of this too, and going back to my thing about the hyper-criminalization of everything in our society, I suspect that the city council members may not realize how much incredible lifelong damage is done to somebody by having a criminal record, that may be far worse than even being bullied.
Oh, yeah, no, most definitely. We think that the law is going to fuel the school-to-prison pipeline by charging youth with crimes rather than addressing the root causes of the conduct. And those contacts with the criminal justice system absolutely have lasting negative repercussions for that student's life going forward. Difficulties getting jobs, getting into institutions of higher education, students who have had contacts with the criminal justice system are far more likely to have future contacts with the system and to drop out of school entirely.
Yeah. And so how do you think this is going? Is the council person who's promoting this listening to you?
Well, I certainly hope so. I guess that we'll have to see that on, I believe they're reconsidering it on the 20th.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And who is aggressively promoting this, other than somebody who thought it was a good idea and decided to put it before the city council?
I honestly don't know. My apologies.
So, but in other words, there's not the Koch brothers and Alec behind it or something like that.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, well, that's reassuring. Brendan, thanks a lot for dropping by and for your insights into this.
No, thank you for having me.
Sure. Brendan Hamme, and he's with the ACLU of Southern California. ACLUSocal.org is the website, and I truly appreciate it. It's a fascinating topic. Thank you.